are listening to Heart of the Ark podcast from the Office for Evangelization in the Archdiocese of Newark. We're coming to you to bring knowledge and some courage as we voyage through this life as missionary disciples of our Lord Jesus Christ. My name is Jennifer Benke, and I'm co-hosting this podcast with my friend and colleague, Father John Gordon. Hello and welcome to the Heart of the Ark podcast from the Office for Evangelization at the Archdiocese of Newark. My name is Jennifer Benke and I am the Associate Director here. I am thrilled to be able to present to you a conversation with Paul Jarzembowski. He's the Associate Director on the staff of the USCCB, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, and he works in Washington, D.C. Because of that, our conversation took place over Zoom, and I had to choose which of our microphones would get preference. And I chose Paul's microphone to the detriment of my own. So listeners, I ask you to bear with me as sometimes it seems like I'm talking over him because of the lag. And then a few times it sounds like I'm speed talking and had way too much coffee before our conversation. So I think it's really a great opportunity to think outside the box for evangelization and how we reach people who we really want back to connect with church. And I'd love Paul to introduce himself because I do enough talking on this podcast.
It's so good to be with you. I'm Paul Jarzembowski. I have been working at the U.S. Bishops Conference in Washington, D.C. for the past 10 years. I'm a native of the greater Chicagoland area, originally from the Diocese of Gary, Indiana, born and raised. And I've worked at the Archdiocese of Chicago and the Diocese of Joliet in my 23 years of ministry in the church. And so my role at the USCCB, I'm the Associate Director of the Laity. And within that portfolio are all things related to lay ministry, lay apostolates, lay movements, as well as youth and young adults.
Wonderful. And that's how we met last week when you were up in Newark. And you were speaking at the youth and young adult ministry workshop that we had at our retreat center.
Yeah.
So
it was wonderful to be with you there. It was wonderful to be with all those pastoral leaders looking to serve our young people.
I know you travel a lot. You get to speak to a lot of ministers out in the world. If you wanted to say something to those of us who are local or in the vineyard, any words of wisdom that you've picked up?
Sure. One of the things that I think that in terms of the ministry with young people, really just being open to the prophetic and protagonistic spirit of young people and really allowing that energy to come forth to the church. That's been for me a very strong thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is just the protagonism of young people and how their energy and their enthusiasm for the faith can teach us great and valuable things. So I think if I had a kernel thing to share, that's something that for me continues to be present. Even since I talked to you, I've had a chance to engage with other ministry leaders, and that engagement of young people as protagonists continues to shape and guide my work. So
that's wonderful. You and I both share the Star Wars fan appellation. So the image of letting the students be the Luke Skywalker in the story, right?
I'm telling you, it's such a resonance. Although somebody recently came up to me and said they preferred perhaps a Lord of the Rings analogy, perhaps, and perhaps that is more apt, in the sense that it's a journey, it's a fellowship, it's the younger and the older generations journeying together in a way. Maybe that's a better analogy, but either way, really having that protagonism of the young person to really let them take that lead in our church, in our communities, and then getting the Lord of the Rings reference in, who are you journeying with? Who are the elders? Technically, I guess Frodo would be like the young person, but you need your Gandalfs there as well, and you need your Aragorns and all those others that kind of help guide the fellowship along. So the community needs to work together. It's a community on a journey, as Pope Francis says.
I'm very excited for this, addressing these generations, the millennials and the Gen Z, and how do we empower them and allow them to really minister with us instead of ministering to them, but minister with us and giving them leadership roles and giving them agency and within our parishes. In light of that, we started a conversation, and you generously gifted me your recent book, Hope from the Ashes. Can we talk about this?
Absolutely. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
We're getting towards Lent. Might as well talk about Lent.
First off, one thing that really resonated with me first was that everything you write about, you start with the word, and you even include in the back the readings of Ash Wednesday. So I'm coming from a liturgical ministry background. I've been a music minister in parishes for a very long time. And so I'm in that unique position of often being one of those people that sees crowds come and go 4 to 6 to 8 times in a 24-hour period. And so I rely on the word of Christ to get me through and to really make sure that my heart isn't hardened, right? You use that analogy in here, but also the way in which I create a new heart, a clean heart. I know we now sing, "Be merciful, O Lord, for we have sinned," but the prior response before 2010 was, "Create a clean heart in me, O God," right? So every time I see new people, renew my spirit within me, right? So that was something that really spoke to me about this. When you were writing, how did you kind of conceptualize the writing and that sort of thing to really make it speak?
Yeah. Well, I think the origin of this is just the observation every year. Ash Wednesday comes around every year, and every year, I remember sitting each Ash Wednesday and seeing the crowds that are in there. Many faces I did not know, kind of cramming my way into the pew. That on a normal given Sunday had a lot more arm space and more personal space, but on Ash Wednesday it really didn't. But then I thought to myself while listening to those readings, how is what they're hearing resonating? And, both to the person who's maybe coming for the first time in a while, or for me who's there every Sunday. I really started thinking about it. In my work with young adults through the years, when I work with young adults, I look at a lot of data points and stuff like that. It's always, everybody's got a study. Everyone's done research on young people. There's probably more research done on younger generations than there's libraries big enough to fill all that stuff. It's just everyone studies them. So I'm constantly looking at the trends and religious affiliation of young people just to see how things are going and what new insights we're getting every year when they study young people. And I found it interesting that the one anomaly in all of this was that as every data point went downward, the sloping downward, there's not that many people coming to church anymore. Sunday worship, engagement in parishes, just the trajectory was always on a downward slope. But there was one exception to that, and it stops you in your tracks because you're so used to seeing the trend lines go in a certain direction. And that was around Lent. Lent goes in the opposite direction. Young people who are younger are sometimes more engaged than even older generations are in the Lenten season. And that stopped me going, wait a minute, why is this line going in a different direction than every other line? And so but then I sat there and I thought to myself, but Paul, every Ash Wednesday, you notice that the churches are filled with people more than you can count. So it shouldn't surprise us, but yet, and every time I raise this up to people, they're like, well, oh yeah, that's true. But sometimes I think when we get on Ash, I know I've been this way, Lent is a very inward focused season. And so we think about our own experience. We don't stop to think of how communal this day has become. And so it's maybe sometimes difficult to think, oh yeah, I guess I don't know these people. And what an opportunity. So for me, that's how I came to really write this book, is collecting that experience and thinking, what can we do about this? The theory is wonderful. I love theory. Obviously, I love the data. It's great. But then at the end of the day, what really matters is what can we do about it? So my book was both hey, by the way, this is happening. And then the second part of the book is really, so what are we going to do about it? So I really wanted to write that experience as well.
Yeah, I think you handled it perfectly in that standpoint. I found it very practical, especially when you get into the beyond the ashes part in terms of okay, how do we build this out? But I especially appreciated in the very beginning, I think it was in the very first part, where you really kind of tackle your own almost like annoyance with the people that show up, right? Because that's an experience. Like I said, I've been a liturgical minister for so long that, it's like, oh, where are you people? Like 364 other days of the year. Like, come on, folks. Like, and you get that like, oh, it's never going to change. They're only going to come for the freebies, right? Some people call them ashes and palms Catholics or creasters. I mean, we have these words, and that is in a way a hardening of our hearts, right? Because we're not asking the questions like, so what is it that brings them back? And I've struggled with Ash Wednesday for a long time, inwardly. And so this was very refreshing to me as someone who toils often and long hours, especially you even say like, your frontline workers, your pastors, your pastoral staff, they're going to need care because they're turning around so many people, but that, you give practical tips for the ministers as well on how to keep their hearts open then.
Yeah. And it's true. Many of us have probably been in that situation that, to me, and I think where I know in prayer, the parable that always would kind of come back to me would be the parable of the workers in the vineyard, and, here I am going, like, look, I've been here, Lord, I've been working in this church for how long? And the person that shows up once a year, you mean they get the exact same grace that you gave me, even though I've been working? And God's saying, Yep, that's it. That is exactly the point. And so it has made me go, okay, it's not, the grace of God is boundless. And so, and just the fact that it also kind of softened my approach in thinking, okay, so what's their story? There was a TV show on a couple of years ago called Lost, and I know many people liked it and stuff like that. But one of the things that was always fascinating about that particular show is that every episode was a different story of how someone got to the island. And it really looked back. And, it's fascinating that the person you sit there and go, oh, these people, they're so annoying to me right now, but what's that story that led them there? Where is the pain? Where's the struggle? And everyone's got a story. So I always think to myself, so now when I look at Ash Wednesday, I sit there and I go, what's their story? Like if we could have an episode where we could, go back and learn, how did you get to here? What a wonderful thing. And I don't have to wait for it. I don't have to imagine it. Like if I can actually, if I get out of myself on Ash Wednesday, if I get out of myself in Lent, maybe I'll learn that story. And what a captivating thing, but the tapestry of stories that comes to us on Ash Wednesday, and it shatters that kind of coldness that sometimes I know I've had. And so now every Ash Wednesday, I know on Ash Wednesday, we're supposed to be kind of, it's a season of penance and so, but I wake up excited every Ash Wednesday because I'm thinking, I'm going to meet somebody that I've never met before today. I'm going to have an encounter that's going to transform me. And I'm so looking forward to that. Maybe I'll have more than one, but at least I know, because there's going to be so many new faces there, that I'm going to have that opportunity today to learn another person's story. And that's exciting. So a little bit of joy on Ash Wednesday.
It can't all be between the porch and the altar.
Yeah.
But one of the other things I love about this book is that you begin and you step up to the challenge and you identify with real stories, the real stories of why people come back on Ash Wednesday. And I think you've got 7 of them, right? 7. I won't go through them all. People are going to have to buy the book to get it, but that's the first part. But in the back, you give like exactly beyond the ashes, how we take those 7 realities that we've outlined. And then you say, how do we build this out to a church that is really thinking about these people and their stories for the long term. And I thought that was really important, especially, we're having this conversation a week or so before most churches are going to experience Ash Wednesday this year. But so even if people pick up the book this year and they start to read it, how do the thought of this is a more long term. Yeah. It's a way of thinking about those people who come back. And that I really appreciated.
First of all, if I was going to write a book and I have to list things, I figure I might as well go with a good biblical number. Because really, to be honest with you, the reasons why people reconnect on Ash Wednesday or throughout the season of Lent, I mean, there's as many reasons as there are people. But there are a couple of common threads, and those 7 threads to me kept popping up in the stories that I would hear. I kind of fall under one of those 7 categories, but they're not exhaustive or exclusive. But those 7 were just kind of good points. Okay, if we're gonna let's explore maybe 7 reasons why, and then as you noted, okay, so if that's why they reconnect for Lent, how can we tap into that reason for the rest of the year? Because one of those 7 is not that I like free dirt on my head. That is not one of the 7 reasons. So we don't have to worry about giving ashes every other day of the year to get people to come. There are other deeper reasons why people come. And we can do that any time of year. It's just in Lent, we seem to do it a little. Sometimes it comes more naturally. Sometimes the season kind of lends itself to it. So it's sometimes easier for us as a community to do programming or do ministries around that. But these wouldn't work any other time of year. And in fact, I talk about other moments of return. We talked about Christmas and Easter, of course, but there's also Our Lady of Guadalupe is particularly prominent, especially within the Hispanic Latino community. Weddings and funerals and baptisms are moments of return for many people, and some of those reasons why they come on Ash Wednesday are often the reasons why they come for those other. It's just expressed in a different way. But yeah, I certainly don't want people to just and actually just a note about this, even if you pick up this book during the season of Lent, actually the interesting statistic is that while about 40 to 50% of self-identified Catholics will be going to church on Ash Wednesday, which may sound small, but recognizing that about 15 to 25% is the normal Sunday engagement. So that doubles on Ash Wednesday. Well, on the Fridays of Lent, it actually gets even higher, that almost 60 to 65% of self-identified Catholics will be fasting from meat on Fridays. And, a significant amount will be giving something up for the season or doing something positive for the season. And these are including a lot of young people, especially who are disaffiliated from the faith. So even throughout the season of Lent, it might not be as visible, but if you think your churches are crowded on Ash Wednesday, just think there's even more people who are joining you in giving up meat on Fridays. So there's something to this season. So there's that liminal space throughout the whole 40 days of Lent that I think people are drawn to. And so even if you miss Ash Wednesday, I always say, especially if you have here's a very practical tip I always tell, for instance, on Fridays in Lent, you might on a couple of the Fridays of Lent, if you have a son or daughter who maybe is less active in their faith, but they used to be active, but they're not as much, maybe on Fridays in Lent, give them a call, send them an email, to just, and that maybe connect, in the conversation, you might have a conversation about, hey, so, what are you eating for dinner tonight? I mean, it could be a simple conversation like that, just to kind of remind them of that. And maybe they might already be like, yeah, I know we're going for pizza or pasta tonight, or we're going to the fish place or something like that. Right. And so that might trigger, I went to McDonald's today and I got the fillet of fish instead of the the quarter pounder or whatever it is, so whatever, that could be a very interesting thing that throughout the season of Lent, Fridays are very sacred, even for people who don't go that regularly. It's something that's embedded in us as a Catholic culture. So So that's a long answer to your short question there. So
no, but that's great. I also there are a couple other things that really stuck out to me of ways that we could incorporate throughout the 40 days. You mentioned maybe if you're upset that your kids or somebody in your family is not engaged with the church, you could pick 40 people you're going to pray for. And I thought wow, what if just here in the chancery, if I picked one person every day in the chancery to pray for, that would be such a grace to me and hopefully for them, that would give, but without them knowing, obviously, but maybe God would give them a little extra boost that day.
Yeah. It's I know that people, and I talk to a lot of people who, kind of beat themselves up around the fact that if their children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews are maybe when they were younger were active in the faith, but maybe now aren't. And it can be this kind of sense of, oh, what did I do? Did I fail? Did I, so first of all, letting people know that no matter where they are, maybe somebody somewhere is going to be able to accompany their grandson, their granddaughter, their son or daughter, and we can do the same for someone else's. If during the season of Lent, if we are accompanying, praying for, or reaching out to somebody who's less active, we're doing a service not just for them, but for their mother, their father, their grandparents who are praying for them. So if everyone could, pray for or help somebody else's, child or grandchild, their adult children through this season of Lent, imagine if everyone was doing that. You can rest assured that as a community of faith, someone is taking care of your son and daughter this Lent, your grandchildren this Lent. Because if we all commit to doing something for someone else's, maybe that'll happen for us as well. So that is kind of a dream and a hope that, we can do this. And, we may say, oh, my son or daughter, I don't know what to do with them, but maybe someone else is taking care of them. And then, maybe if we just kind of collectively do that, that can make a difference.
I think so. I know that sometimes I can drive a little aggressively. My kids tell me that too. I know. But I know that when at the after school time, when then there's a whole bunch of new drivers on the road, I tend to be a little bit more relaxed because I know that I don't want to put them in danger. And I also don't want to cut them off because they'll cut someone else off and they're not as okay. It's New Jersey. We have traffic. I know you don't know anything about traffic in DC, but that's something that but I have seen that when I'll let somebody else go in front of me and then the next intersection they let someone else in, that it you can see it like an additive effect, and you can also see it when you're aggressive, someone else is aggressive, and then the aggressive ramps up. So putting out those little blessings by accompanying somebody else in the church, even if it's not the person you want to be there, but you can be the welcome that someone else is going to get, and that adds to the community. That really spoke to me too. That was the other part I was going to bring up. So if I can, I'm going to read it's kind of long, but one paragraph that you have in the chapter 4. You've got second page of the Ash Wednesday experience here, that what if paragraph, because I'm a musician, I'm an artist. That's where I live. Right. And so the what if is always that, what if we could do this? Right. And sometimes when we work in church, we see how slow it doesn't always move as quickly as we want it to move dynamically. But, but these what if questions, I think, are really important for everybody in our listenership and in the Archdiocese, and pastors and lay people and ministers, and just someone praying in the pews to just think about. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read. What if on Ash Wednesday, a newcomer were greeted warmly at the door when they arrive or when they walk up to a minister? If they are in a church, perhaps they are escorted to an available seat by a friendly usher. Just maybe in that instance, when they sit down, the person to their right or left might engage with them in light conversation, or at the very least, offer a friendly smile and introduce themselves. What if, as the service begins, the space, the music, and the prayers all gave the visitor a profound sense of rest and refreshment? What if a sermon, reflection, or homily caused the newcomer and the regular churchgoer alike to experience a wondrous mix of comfort, insight, and challenge? What if everyone in the church that day truly felt connected to one another as they all received ashes together? And what if, at the conclusion of that moment, a newcomer wanted to stay around even longer? Perhaps everyone who received ashes that day was excited to come back again. What if? That's just so... To me, it's just like, yes, that's what if, and I know that we have 220 some odd parishes here in the Archdiocese of Newark and almost 1.4 million self-identified Catholics, but they're not all coming to Mass. But what if we took those moments and we really said, how are we going to accompany these people? How are we going to welcome them and make them feel like they belong and they can find the rest from everything outside this building? Mm-hmm. That this is the place of sanctuary and belonging that they're craving.
Yeah. In some respects, Lent and Ash Wednesday are a what if that we do for the rest of the year. We're like, what if our churches were filled? That's the question we ask first. We always, for the rest of the year, we're always like, what if our churches are filled? So right. In a way, I kind of look at it, God saying, all right, I got you on this. So Ash Wednesday, here's the first what if comes true. Our churches are filled, but then that's only that dreaming of full churches is only the first step of evangelization. Because in order for something to truly take root, the experience they have that day has to be something that goes, because we call it moments of return, and it's very momentary, because if during that experience there's not a compelling reason for them to come back, then great, we had the numbers, but do we have the lasting impact? And so the encouragement, of course, is what if on that day they not only came, but they had an experience that reminded them, this is why I do come once a year. This is what's special. This is what's memorable, that the welcoming spirit, the homily, the music, the invitation that's there, even just the smiles, people it's amazing how just a simple act of smiling at a stranger and maybe even engaging in light conversation can go a long way. So, like I said, the first what if was, what if they came? Right. Okay, check that box. Now, what if they stayed? And that is totally dependent on us. And because oftentimes the reason why they don't stay is totally dependent on us too, because that's sometimes they're not rejecting, one of the things, especially in my work with young people, most people who are disconnected don't reject Jesus. They don't reject the faith. What they struggle with the most is their encounters with us. And that's often what drives them away. It's not Jesus. It's not the faith. It's not the doctrines of the church. It's often their engagement with people who claim Jesus as their Lord. And so if their engagement with us is a positive one, that what if can possibly come true. So thank you for reflecting on that, because it is kind of a journey into imagination of sorts. We have to dream big. And I think Ash Wednesday is an opportunity. And the whole season of Lent is really a season to dream big. What if? And as I said, it kind of turns a kind of a sorrowful season into, dare I say, a season of joy. And a season, well, maybe hope, that something good can happen.
That idea that you said about very few people reject Jesus. I know you said that on Thursday night when we were at the youth ministry conference, but you also later in the book say, rather to truly gain a person's trust, our motives must be pure and our hearts must not be hardened. We reimagine our approach on Ash Wednesday and Lent and throughout the year because we want to enter into a relationship with other travelers along the road. And you say we can't have ulterior motives, right? It's got to be about Jesus. And I like that. What if can't be about, well, what if they all brought $20 with them, right? When they walked in the door, right? No, like that may solve some of our problems, but that doesn't solve the problem of why they're not here, and we have to really focus on the mission of the church is the evangelization and the bringing people into a conversion moment and a lifetime of reconverting.
Because I think relationship that you want to build with a person is because you genuinely want to get to know them, and you want to know how Jesus is already active in their lives and what more do they need of Jesus in their life. That's what really is key. I think, we want you to, join our parish. We want you to register for our parish. That's what we really like. If that's your motive, that's going to be sniffed out, really, especially younger people will sniff that out immediately. Like, you just want to count me as one of as another check mark on how big your parish is. If that's the motive, then they'll sniff that out. So we have to in part of good engagement before and during Lent is kind of checking ourselves and going, what is it that why is it that I want people to come to church? Is it because, I want to see our pews filled, or is it because I want people to have an encounter with Jesus Christ and I want them to recognize Christ already present in their lives? If that's the motive, that's a good motive. But checking ourselves and wondering, so half of it is our actions, but the other half is also the internal reflection. We need to, prepare our hearts for Ash Wednesday, for Lent, for this phenomenon to kind of unfold before us. Yeah.
I think that's really important. And it brings us back to those readings, right? Those readings that you use as the outline of all of our thoughts about this, is that, Christ is really calling us to convert as a people, to be the people he needs us to be to the world.
Yeah, this kind of, I find it so fitting that the first reading for every Ash Wednesday, which, by the way, never changes from year to year. We always get the same readings. So the reading from Joel, is really reflecting on that return of the exiles. The prophet Joel was wondering, when the exiles return to Jerusalem, what will that experience be like? So here we have a day where the exiles of sorts are returning to a Jerusalem of sorts. They're returning to this place of the sanctuary. And so, so Joel's reading is very apt for a day when that happens. And then Paul's reading I love Paul's reading because he's now talking in a way to us as more active churchgoers, saying, we need you to be ambassadors for Christ, and to not receive, the St. Paul's passage, do not receive the grace of God in vain. You have, in a way, this Ash Wednesday and throughout the season of Lent, you've been given a grace. And that grace is the fact that your prayers have been answered. Our churches are filled. Are you going to receive that grace that God has given to us in vain? Like, are you going to be like, well, are you going to get angry at the fact that God answered your prayer and go, what the heck, God, why are all these people here? Like, well, God's like, you asked for it, so don't receive that in vain. Don't be mad at them. You've been begging for this all year long, and here it is. So receiving, and so in a way, the second reading, really kind of is Paul's kind of admonition to active Christians, to saying, okay, now be ambassadors of Christ. And how can you be Christ to that person today? The readings are I think it's wonderful that those are the readings that the church has chosen for us to listen to, because as year after year, it's like, oh, okay, I hear what you're saying, God. Thank you.
Right. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Like, yeah. Oh, okay. As the cantor, right? Yes. Yeah. As the cantor, how many times have I sung that and been like, oh, okay, all right, harden not my heart. I get it. Those are really important words from my perspective to really hear and to allow to kind of seep into who we are as church, as we try to make these changes and the why we're making the changes, and that how it constantly be reflecting on how can we, break open our hearts more and more to God, to allow him to make up what we lack. Obviously, some of us lack a lot more than others. So This has been great. I don't want to take too much of your time. I'd like for you, like, super practical. What should my pastors, what do they need to know, their ministers, about this Ash Wednesday?
Yeah. So if this Ash Wednesday, maybe it's the before, during, and after experience of that whole thing. So, like, as they enter, so making sure that there are people at your doors on Ash Wednesday, like, greeting people, and not just to logistically tell them, like, okay, go here, you go there, but to really give them a sense of welcome. So making sure that you have a crew on hand at the door, holding the door open, smiling, even walking with them to the seat. Don't just point, oh yeah, this is the way to the pews, but walk with them to the seat. That's a simple way to just start up a conversation. So that way you're like, oh yeah, let me guide you there. You want to sit in the back, no big deal. I'll walk you to the back row, but that's fine. But walking with them, having people there. And then in terms of the during, make sure that the homily, the music is just like, it's an experience of the transcendent. And whatever one does in any sort of, whether it's a personal conversation or a homily, don't guilt anyone or make anyone feel already a little more damaged than they already feel walking in there. Many people who don't come that regularly are well aware of their habits. No need to make a joke of it. No need to be flippant about it. They're aware. They know they're imperfect and all that. It's probably best to really showcase that love of God. And then the final thing is afterward. Maybe see if there is something you can do afterwards. Like if you've got several masses or prayer services for Ash Wednesday, is there perhaps like at one of the one that you're going to get a huge crowd at, like your 7 p.m. Wednesday Mass. Afterwards, consider doing a little soup supper, a gathering. It doesn't have to be long, but something, because people aren't racing back like Christmas or Easter to open presents or anything like that. People after that Mass or service, they may have, they can maybe give you 30 extra minutes for something, and to really invite people to come by and to meet other people, and to have that be a wonderful opportunity for fellowship. So make that whole experience just phenomenal for that person.
Thank you. That's wonderful advice. I really appreciate it. So before we go, I usually close with a prayer. We didn't begin with it, but I'd like to close with a prayer. And I always love the Psalms. So I was just going to read the Psalm for Ash Wednesday, unless you want to. Would you like to? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm more than happy. I've got my...
Okay.
All right. So good and gracious God, we call upon your name, and we listen to your words in the Psalms. Be merciful, O Lord, for we have sinned. Have mercy on me, O God, in your goodness. In the greatness of your compassion, wipe out my offense. Thoroughly wash me from my guilt, and of my sin cleanse me. Be merciful, O Lord, for we have sinned. For I acknowledge my offense, and my sin is before me always. Against you only have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight. Be merciful, O Lord, for we have sinned. A clean heart create for me, O God, and a steadfast spirit renew within me. Cast me not from your presence, and your Holy Spirit take not from me. Be merciful, O Lord, for we have sinned. Give me back the joy of your salvation, and a willing spirit sustain in me. O Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall proclaim your praise. Be merciful, O Lord, for we have sinned.
Thank you so much, Paul. Amen. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it. And have a holy and happy and blessed Lent.
Yes. Have a happy Ash Wednesday, a happy Lent. Make it happy, because you're going to meet some incredible people that day.
Amen. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Heart of the Ark podcast is an initiative by the Office for Evangelization at the Archdiocese of Newark. If you want to find us online, you can find us at rcan.org/evangelization. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Very soon we'll be updating our social media for the Heart of the Ark, but you can find us on Fireside Podcasts at heartoftheark.fireside.fm. Our theme song is composed by and orchestrated by Eric Hunter, a dear friend of mine. You can find out more about Eric and his performances and compositions at Eric, E-R-I-C, Hunter, H-U-N-T-E-R, music.com. This has been a pleasure, and I look forward to hearing from you and speaking with you in the future.